Welcome to the Cincy Postcast, and before we begin, I want to talk to you a little bit about Streetside Brewery. Streetside Brewery is your neighborhood brewery located in the beating heart of Columbia, Tusculum. It's the kind of place where you wish you lived just a little bit closer so you could walk down every night. They've got an incredible rotating selection of taps available, including one of my favorites, Ghostface Killa. You know I respect and love any brewery who shows respect and love to the Wu-Tang Clan. Protect your neck. But if you're not into gozes, they've got you covered with blondes, English milds, IPAs, and stouts aplenty. There are also events throughout the year in the tap room. You can get the full calendar online at streetsidebrewery.com. But mark your calendars now for Streetside Oktoberfest coming on Friday, September 5th. After all, you can't call yourself a Cincinnatian if you skip Oktoberfest, and this is one you won't want to miss. Streetside Brewery. It's beer, but better. Oh, and on the Cincy Postcast today, we've got one heck of a show. You know, if I'm doing the intro, it can only mean one thing. It's a special edition of Grayson and the Chief. FC Cincinnati turned 10 years old this weekend. We talk a little bit about the festivities this weekend and the big picture of where this club sits 10 years into this funny little thing we all love. The Alumni came out and put on a show with a thrilling 3-2 win for Team Blue on the backs of a brace from Emery Welshman. And yes, unfortunately, we do have to talk about the actual match against Charlotte, featuring, once again, comically incompetent officiating. Stop me if you've heard this one before. We finish off with a preview of this weekend's match against Portland. Add it up, and that's a damn full show. There's Trim Trace and the Makers, so let's get this going. Hit it, Schwei. Oh, and joining me to talk about all of that and more, I have a gentleman, who in most photos that I saw from this weekend just didn't look like the seating was that comfortable at Northern Row. I'm joined by Grayson. Grayson, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing just great. I'm back in my element where nobody can see me. Feeling good in a more comfortable chair. The sound issues are behind us.
Yes.
So
thankfully.
I don't have to see Jeff Birding looking pretty pissed off every time that there's feedback.
Right.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, Jeff was an incredible sport. He gave us a ton of time.
Yeah.
I thought he spoke, it was a mix, I think, of some of the stuff that he's probably used to saying to people, and other stuff that was, I thought, very frank and off the cuff, and we got to see a bit more of his personality and learn some of his real opinions about some things, and he's how you think he is.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate that, like, he seems like he's always his authentic self.
No doubt. And I think that's the interesting part of all this. And it's kind of why I respect Jeff Birding quite a bit, actually, is that you love Jeff or you hate Jeff. Jeff is always Jeff. He is not going to change who he is in terms of, it's what you see is what you get with the guy. And if you love him, that's fine. He's fine with that. If you hate him, he's not fine with that, but he moves on. He's not going to try and be someone other than Jeff Birding. And
right, you're just a gazelle.
Yeah. Which, just a wild story.
I thought about, he mentioned having the brush with USL's president basically immediately.
Yeah.
Right? When he comes out and says, we're not here to be minor league. And you've heard some other things or I guess inferred some stuff about how this team and its ownership has been received in league circles.
Yeah.
In particular, I'm thinking back to, this Jeff Carlisle article. I used to listen to a podcast called Allocation Disorder that's no longer around, and they would, drop things about Jeff Birding and that, frankly, were clearly
Personal.
overstatements.
Yeah, they were
personal.
It was personal,
And
right?
like there was, when they were looking for it was what, October 21 is when Noonan and Albright were both in place.
Albright was definitely in place.
Albright was first. Noonan was a little after.
We kind of knew Noonan was the answer there. So yeah.
Yeah. So when they were looking, they were looking for the GM before Gerard was fired, no doubt. But
yeah.
But after actually, I do remember the timing being a little funny, where like Gerard was fired. The leaks came out that they were bringing in Albright, but Albright wasn't actually in place yet.
Right.
And Birding took the hit and fired Stom.
Yeah.
Like a day before Albright was officially hired, right? So that his first act on the job wasn't going to be firing the head coach.
Yeah, because by that point, Tyrone Marshall, by the time Albright was officially hired, Tyrone Marshall was had already been put in place, and Albright didn't bring anyone else in. It was just, we're going to let Tyrone finish the season out. They did a little bit of some formation changes, and it was dreary. But yeah, no, Birding set all that up to make sure that, because it would have been very funny where it's like, we're bringing in this general manager and his first act has to be to fire this legend of European soccer that has been an abject failure of a manager here in Cincinnati.
And that's the other thing is, like, with stuff like that, Jeff has never shied away from, I'm making the decision, and that is something I truly respect, when people are willing to actually be the one that makes the call and, take the heat or take the responsibility for it. I mean, sometimes you get to take credit for it, but anyway, so when the GM's job was open, Allocation Disorder would do episodes where they were talking about open coaching and GM jobs around the league, and they were trashing us. And it really felt like they were getting their lumps in before things got
better,
better, right? And they were saying things like, nobody wants to work with Jeff Birding. He's going to be in there, there's going to be meddling, blah, blah, blah. And that was like widespread among people in and around the team, or in and around the league, I'm sorry, in what was getting put out in the media, right? And I do think a part of it is there was an idea that Cincinnati should just be happy to be here.
Yeah.
Right. And Jeff, as the, I guess, avatar for the team and the fans, right, was acting a little too big for his britches.
Yeah.
Talking about bringing in big players, talking about, going for trophies and all that stuff. And I think people just, I don't know if it's like their own insecurities to think like, well, if I was Cincinnati, like I would not be acting like this, or the need to be, like I live in New York, or I live in Chicago, or I live in LA, and they need to know their place.
Right.
Right. And I think there's a big part of that. And where Jeff just isn't ashamed of being here, isn't ashamed of being from here, and isn't ashamed of, going out for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Like bidding on as many of these big events as they can. And that's something I think that is invaluable to the organization. Whatever else you want to say.
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting note, just as sort of, I thought the first part of this episode we would talk a little bit just about the 10th anniversary overall of the team. We had some of the audio from our show at Northern Row that's available on the podcast timeline. Hopefully you've heard it by now. Some great moments with former players from the FC that came back who were more than gracious with their time coming around to the various supporters bars and who all agreed when they were at Northern Row to come up on stage. And we only got a few minutes with each group of players, so I wish we would have had more time. I'm very grateful for the time we had. It was a incredibly surreal experience. I mean, just speaking for myself, sort of overwhelmed by just seeing all these people back and seeing them in their element and seeing them interacting with the fans and seeing the love the fans had for them. Part of that was Jeff Birding that we're talking about. We weren't able to get the audio for that just because, boy, was it a nightmare to try and get the audio right at, a building as old as Northern Row with the acoustics, the wiring, and just us, generally speaking, not being professionals at this. So it's a what you see is what you get kind of thing. But to the point with Birding, and I think it ties in nicely to the 10th anniversary of this club overall in this sense, is that I agree completely with you that a lot of that personal dislike of Birding and the FC organization as a whole, and you still see it. Jonathan Tannewald, one of the more well-known soccer writers, I believe he's still at the Philadelphia Inquirer right now, never misses a shot to take at Cincinnati as an organization. Stephen Goff, to a lesser extent, same way. There are a lot of people who still enjoy taking pot shots in the direction of Cincinnati, and I think it is because that at every point in this team's history, and it was started, Birding told the story that you were referencing, that in the first introductory press conference where they had Jake Edwards, I believe, is the guy who was the president of the USL at the time. He might still be the president of USL. But they're on stage introducing this brand new ownership group. And in that press conference, Jeff Birding says, we have a goal of being an MLS franchise. And there's this USL commissioner who, as it turns out, had big plans for USL. And this new team is already talking about we're leaving these minor league suckers behind as soon as we can get our stuff together. To which Jeff had a really funny line, and that's that he said, I told Jake Edwards, Carl Linder didn't show up to own a minor league sports team. I hope you're aware of that fact. Like, he is not in this for the long haul to own a minor league team. We're here to build a major league team. That should be obvious by the amount of money we're putting up on this. But I do think it rubbed people the wrong way that this team has always been so nakedly ambitious. And that didn't stop when the team got into MLS. And it rubbed people the wrong way. They were made fun of for making the big splash signing of Brenner, that, oh, you overpaid for this player. It's like, in all other circumstances, if it's not Cincinnati, if this is New York doing this or this is LA doing this, they are praised for being ambitious and driving the league forward and pushing the league forward. But in Cincinnati, it's, no, they're overspending. They're not behaving themselves the way a small Midwestern minor, flyover country team should. And the funny thing that's happened with this team is that they've kind of backed the talk up at every stage, is that Brenner wasn't a one-off signing. They went off and they've spent bigger and bigger dollars on every subsequent transfer they've brought in. If they're not breaking the record at the time for incoming transfer with Kevin Denke, they follow that up by setting the record for the MLS cash first by bringing in Evander. They are constantly one of the teams that are the highest spending teams in terms of ownership outlay of salary and extra spending. And so they've kind of, by constantly backing their talk up, they've made themselves unassailable to a certain extent now. And now when the shots do get made, they come off as kind of hollow and kind of petty. Yep. And the other thing, too, is that I was struck by this, and I don't know if you had the same feeling that I did. I was struck seeing all of these former players back and playing in the Alumni game on Sunday night, coming around to all the supporters bars and participating in the pregame festivities. They all stayed around another day to play in the FCC charity golf outing. Anyone that's not a local, the team paid. to bring in. They paid to put up for the weekend. They paid to have them in. All these people wanted to be here. They wanted to come back. And you look at somebody like Kendall Waston, who we had on the show. That guy ditched a game for his club team in Costa Rica.
I can't believe he did that.
To come back and hang out in Cincinnati for a weekend with a club that when he was here was
terrible.
Awful. Like historically awful. But like he still had that connection. And he talked about it of what a great time he had playing here. What an honor it was to play in front of this city and for this fan base, and how much he loved the organization. And I was just sort of struck by, over the years, all the people who, for everything they've said about FC Cincinnati, for, you know, the mismanagement of managers or general managers or this issue or that issue, this team has done incredible things. And there are some players who now have like lifetime ties to this organization, and not just some, a lot of players who had never been to Cincinnati or set foot in Cincinnati in their lives prior to coming to join this team are now
Some
willing
of them
to spend,
sure set foot in Cincinnati while they played for the team.
Right. And now they're all willingly giving up a weekend to come back and be part of this. And you know, it's not like they were being offered an all-inclusive trip to come back to like Honolulu
Right.
for the weekend. They were offered a trip to come back to Cincinnati in the dead of the sweltering summer. And that's kind of cool that they all came back like that. And I think it says so much about this organization that makes me feel good about it as a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was struck by, you know, some of the guys we had talked to before. But others was my first time talking to them. And like, I was struck how kind of, they're all like good dudes.
Yeah.
You know, like Eric Stevenson
Good
seemed
dude.
like a really good dude. Garrett Halfhill, who
Good dude.
barely ever played. Good dude, you know? Richie Ryan played 1 year here. I thought he said some wonderful things about the city.
Yeah. Like his first day,
and now he's back working for the club.
Yeah.
He has played all over the place.
he debuted in the Premier League.
Here.
He debuted in the Premier League.
And then I think about like some of the, you know, he wasn't, you know, in our group of players that we talked to, but there was a guy who came back for it, Jamie Dell, who I'm pretty sure the only appearance he ever had for FC Cincinnati was a preseason game against a team from Iceland.
Oh yeah.
In the 2016 season. Like I don't think he played ever again for us. But, you know, I think it's cool of him to, you know, agree to take part in this, and it's good of the team to recognize that like and Birding said this. I'm not sure if it made the pod or what, but he said that they invited everybody who ever played for the team that didn't get a chance to play in TQL.
Yeah.
And
That was big. That was big for them, was to give them an opportunity to come and take the field in the jersey and in the locker room and on the field that they helped create. I thought that was cool.
And I just really appreciate how much of a connection all these guys still seem to have to the team, and how respectful and appreciative the team is of the guys who were there. You know, I think another thing Jeff said was that, you know, these guys were instrumental in building the connection between the team and the city because of how willing they were to, you know, stay long and sign autographs and do.
Yep.
Like, there were so many community events in that first season, you know, and as they talked about, these were guys who weren't used to being asked to do these things.
Right.
Guys who were not getting a bunch of autograph requests every day, who were not playing in big stadiums, but, you know, pretty much to a man, they rose to the occasion while they were here.
Yeah.
You know, it was consistently an extremely likable team with guys who seemed like great representatives in the community.
Yeah. It's funny, the first player they signed where I genuinely thought that they lost that was Fernando Adi. And that was their first signing to like move up towards MLS. And I think it took them a little bit to figure out how to get that soul back of like, oh, we need to have a certain type of player that wants to be here in Cincinnati. And I think back to the interview we did with Mitch Hildebrandt a long time ago, back when we were just genuinely bad at doing interviews, where like he said that was hard for him almost to come to a place like Cincinnati where it was 20,000 people chanting your name when every other match you'd played in your career was in front of 500, 600 people. I think that opportunity that FC Cincinnati gave a lot of these players, I think that there are a lot of them that are genuinely appreciative of that, to have an opportunity in their career to play in a sold-out stadium, to play in something that felt meaningful and felt big and in front of a fan base that genuinely seemed invested in them as players to a degree that you just don't see in, I think, minor league sports in general. And I love the fact that the club is shares that appreciation. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. You do not see, because I follow all this now, like I have to since we're doing an MLS podcast. I watch this, I look at this. You just don't see this level of respect, honor, and celebration of USL era in other teams that came up the same way as FC Cincinnati did. You see it a little bit in Orlando, but man, like you don't see Nashville out there honoring players that were part of Nashville in the USL or honoring their USL tradition. Most of these teams, they try to shed that as quickly as possible as soon as they become an MLS team. And I think it's really, really cool that this team does that. I think it's really cool they added something on the inside of the stadium that permanently commemorates the 2018 USL Supporters Shield, or whatever the hell the USL calls that. I like the fact that the club, in every bit of branding that it does from MLS, insists on founded 2015. That like this, even before the 10th anniversary season, it's nope. This is a continuous, unbroken organization. I think it's really cool, and I felt a lot of feels over the course of the weekend. I was lucky enough to play in the golf outing as well, and seeing all the former players back for that. It was just from day one of this weekend, I thought that this was a absolute home run by the club. This is sounding like a total shill podcast, but
yeah,
like,
I know,
but like they deserved it. Like we harp up, we will. I'm the first one there for criticizing this club when I don't like a decision they've made. Everything they did this weekend, I thought, was just an absolute home run. I'm so happy they did it. Right down to the. All right, so here's a question. What did you think of? Do you think the right person pulled the sword, giving Kendall the opportunity to do that? Because I thought that was incredibly cool that he was the one that did it.
I'm not sure there would. I think there would have been several right people. Jimmy's done it.
Jimmy has done it.
You know, I don't know if
Has Manu done it?
I think
I feel like
Manu's
he
done
has.
it.
Yeah.
Manu's done it. I don't think Corbin Bone has. I think like Corbin, you could make a case for.
GB has done it.
GB has done it. Deco
Kenny
definitely hasn't, but
Kenny Walker, I could make an argument for. I think too.
Yeah, I would say Kendall ahead of Dekel. I mean, you know, I probably, yes. Ultimately, it was the exact right person to do it because it's probably harder to get Kendall to come back another time, just logistically.
He's still playing.
To do it right. He's still playing. It, like, yeah. For all I know, I don't know how Costa Rica's looking on World Cup qualification, but like he might be playing in the World Cup next year. I think he still gets called in.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, he'll be around. He'll be in America. So
right. So yeah, I mean, I think you can't go wrong with Kendall. He's such a great personality, and it's he strikes an imposing figure. It's a pretty cinematic choice,
right,
to have that guy pull the sword.
Also, I appreciate the fact that they gave Kendall a send-off, because he didn't get a send-off.
Yeah, he did not get a send-off.
His last season here was during the pandemic year, because we talked to him a little bit about the MLS's back tournament, and he had a very funny story to tell about that. So Kendall never got his send-off moment, which is why I thought that was, and there wasn't a lot to cheer for when he was on this team. I thought that was incredibly awesome to give him that moment to be the center of attention. I think the only better choice or choice you could even make with that, and he wasn't here because he's also busy with a real job, it would have been Mitch Hildebrandt. I think would have been the only other person who would have been, the person that would have been right to have that moment if he would have been here. But just beyond cool. Like I said, if you haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast with the interviews from the players that we released on Monday, go back and check that out. Definitely. It's well worth a listen, I think. At some point this weekend, I'm going to be posting onto the social channels. Kevin and I actually did the entire march live with microphones. It's ridiculous. We're all getting rained on. It was a stupid good time. I'm going to be posting some highlights from that. So watch YouTube, watch socials for that wonderful content as well.
The alumni game really couldn't have gone better.
No, I was about to pivot to the real game, but let's talk about the alumni game first, because that was awesome.
The alumni game couldn't have gotten better. I mean, a lot of people stayed. The Bailey sounded great. There was interactions, between the players and the crowd, like positive interactions.
Yeah, very.
And like guys who I moved down in the First Financial Club closer to the field, because there were some open seats, and the people who were in front of me had brought signs that were like, one said Hoyt is open, the other said something else, and when Justin was on the same side of the field as we were, they had a nice interaction with him. He clearly thought the sign was funny because he saw it. He immediately started laughing, and they were screaming, Hoyt is open, Hoyt is open. And Justin at one point turned over to him. He's like, I know, right?
That's fantastic.
And you got some goals from some classic players, right? You had Jibby score, you had Manu score, you had McLaughlin score, and people forget Emery Welshman scored some big goals for this team while he was here.
My God. Emery Welshman may have scored one of the most important goals in team history,
which is the goal to beat
Detroit City
in the Open Cup. Yep.
Saved me from having to delete my Twitter account, I think. Emery, man, I owe you for being able to continue to exist on X, the everything app. It's all happening on X. That would have been impossible to come back from if those guys would have beaten us.
Yep. And so, I think that was such a fun game. And I have not heard of, I'm sure other teams have done something like it. It's not something I've necessarily seen pushed out or that I'm aware of. And, God, it was the night to do it because
you needed something.
It was cleansing.
Yeah. I should point out, or we should go through this here, that the scoring for the alumni game, leading it off with the first goal, it was Team White versus Team Blue. The first goal scored in the alumni friendly, being able to net a goal in TQL Stadium in front of the Bailey, GB. I don't know that you can script a better start to an alumni game than GB scoring directly in front of the Bailey and going to ground and crawling over to the corner flag in his classic traditional GB-like celebration.
Yep.
The white team makes it 2-0 with, again, I don't know that you can pick a better player to score a goal in this situation. Manu Ledesma looked like it was going to be a rout for the white team in this instance. I went and I spoke to Carter Chapley, who was having a conversation with fellow friend of the podcast, John Horlander. They both described the white team as stacked and that this was an unsurprising result. Well, they say the 2-0 is the most dangerous league in 15-minute alumni friendlies with a 5-minute intermission. And wouldn't you know it, blue team comes roaring back in the second half with the goal from Emery Welshman. Jimmy McLaughlin, little Jimmy, our friend, goes out there, ties the match up at 2-2, and Emery Welshman nets the brace at the death. I think he scores this goal with like 5-10 seconds to play in the friendly to give blue team the win. If you were wondering, I have it on a very, very well-placed source that had the match been tied at the end of the 30 minutes, it would have ended as a tie. They would not have gone to PKs, which to me feels like a tremendous oversight in the planning of the alumni match. But then I realized that these are academy kids that were playing goalkeeper, and I guarantee you they were all getting absolutely torched by their teammates for getting scored on by a lot of retired former players.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. The academy kids, I'm glad they got to. I think it was a nice opportunity for them to do this, but they both looked like they could be taken down a peg or two.
Yeah,
they had a little bit of attitude.
They had a little bit.
If it takes some, which you do want swagger,
right?
But if it takes some, they probably could have used some old timers scoring some goals on them.
I was sitting with Mrs. Chief during this match, subjecting her to the full day of soccer, and I asked, and we were talking, don't you give the academy kids the marching orders kind of like the donut back at Nippert Stadium? Like, you can try, but
no,
this game doesn't need to end 0-0, okay?
No, I think you tell the kids, don't let one by.
I also thought it would have been really funny if they would have gotten 2 donuts to play goal on either end, and it would have been the academy kids in donut costumes. I thought that would have been great. Well, we've delayed long enough. I suppose we do probably need to address the actual match itself on the 10th anniversary game. I don't know that there's really a great way to discuss this. We didn't do it on Monday, obviously, because, well, we produced a shitload of content already, and that was none of us were particularly in the mood to go back and record an episode, even if we would have wanted to do that. But the palate cleanse, it felt like a good way to end the night on the alumni game. I don't think any of us were in the mood to revisit what had happened, but we should probably talk about it. FC Cincinnati falls 1-0 to Charlotte FC in the 10th anniversary match itself. The lineups that posted directly before kickoff featured basically the best team that the FC can put out there right now. You had Kai Kamara up top. Fatmob would say he is in the midfield, but the official team graphic says that he was paired with Dado Valenzuela as the second striker. Playing in the midfield, Evander in the attacking midfield 10 role, Brian Anunga in the 8 role, or in the 6 role, Pavel Buka in the box-to-box 8 role. Along the back line, you had the 3 center backs of Matt Miazga, Miles Robinson, and Lucas Engel. Your wingbacks were Luca Orishano on the left, DeAndre Yedlin on the right. It's the best lineup the FC can put out there, and for, I would say, the better part of, I don't know, like 70 minutes, it looked like a team that was itching to win this game by a large margin. Your thoughts?
I don't know if they were itching to win by a large margin, but they were the better team. They were the better team on the night. They were pretty. They were. I guess you could say dominating up until a certain point. They weren't generating, I would say, the most surefire chances or the most dangerous chances, but they were getting a lot of shots and they were having a lot of the ball. They looked like the only team that was going to score. And so
to put that in perspective, just to jump in, the first half statistics in this game. FC Cincinnati holds a 58-42 possession advantage. XG 0.49 to the FC, 0.002 to Charlotte. Yep. Roman was phenomenally unbothered the entire first half. It's interesting. They looked dominant, and they put a lot of shots on frame. I think at one point the shots advantage, prior to what we're going to talk about here in a second, was something in the neighborhood of like 10-1 or 12-1 in favor of, and that's shots on target, I should say. Shots 10-1, 12-1 to the FC.
They didn't look dominant though in the way that, because there were some folks in the Discord who were like, well, when we win, people point to underlying numbers, and now that we lost, why is it not fair to point to underlying numbers? And we can, but the underlying numbers say that the FC was going to win the game 1-0.
Yeah.
But they weren't as dominant as like the Crew were against us up in Columbus, when they could have easily scored like 4 or 5 goals.
You see, I disagree with that. I think the problem is that it's reductive in thinking a little bit to a certain extent, but when you watch this FC Cincinnati team play, they created chances in this game that required, I would say, some pretty spectacular goalkeeping from Kalina from Charlotte. But the problem with this team ultimately, and I think we've noted this in the past, and it's been kind of the case for a couple years now, is that when this team scores and when this team threatens, they threaten and they score from the spectacular, where one of the chances FC Cincinnati creates is Evander gets hit in the dick, for lack of a better term, and is really mad about that, takes the free kick and absolutely hits a scorcher that requires a diving save. Like, they pissed him off by hitting him below the belt. Evander responds by almost scoring a goal. That's cool, but ultimately that's a more savable opportunity than a lot of chances. And, there's an opportunity Dotto has where it's a shot it's another one that's parried out of the way. There's one off a corner kick that's almost scored in, almost an Olympico scored by Evander. The problem with this team that I see is that when they're in positions of dominance, where they're holding the ball, they're moving the ball, they just rarely create mundane-ass, easy scoring opportunities. Like, there's not a lot of tap-in goals.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of pass to guy, and it's a simple one-touch finish. It's a lot of, wow, what a spectacular move from Evander, or wow, what a spectacular move from Luka that cooks someone and they do something that's incredibly intricate and it leads to a scoring opportunity. And that was kind of the MO when Lucho Acosta was on this team too. Yeah. And you watch teams around the league that score a lot of goals, that win games 4-0 or 4-1. And there's a lot of plays where it's just the ball is passed to the guy that's standing there and they just tap it in. Or there's a shot, someone follows the rebound and taps it in. And just, you don't get a lot of that with FC Cincinnati. So it's kind of, you live and die at the mercy of a keeper standing on his head when you don't create opportunities where the keeper has no chance.
Well, look at like how often the Crew find like great looks for Max Arfson in the box.
Yeah.
Or how often their movement leads to a player receiving the ball in the box with a ton of space.
Yeah.
And imagine like if we found like the same chances the Crew find for Arfson. What if we found those for Luka Orishano?
Or Pavel.
Right. Or Pavel. But like, yeah. So wouldn't they be even better for us because these players are better?
Yeah.
And I feel like I like the spectacular, but I want the spectacular on top of the simple. I don't want the spectacular replacing the simple. And is it like, I don't know, is it like a secret? Do we not know how to do that? Do the players not want to do that? Or is the coaches telling them one thing and they're like, nah, we're just going to do something else? Do the coaches not understand? Or not the coaches, do the players not understand what the coaches are trying to tell them? I don't know. But maybe it is that the philosophy is we have really good creative players. And so rather than have a quote unquote system that is designed to like tactically generate these really good opportunities, we will let our really creative players do what they do best, which is play.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe that's a choice for sure. And there's a lot of there's been a lot of success for a lot of teams by relying on creative players. But I would like more often to see just kind of a cutback pass to a guy who's around the penalty spot and he's got just a great look.
Yeah, just taps it in. Like something where it's just like, it's a simple finish. And not only that, but like also just this idea, I think too, with, it's got to be a coaching decision to a certain extent, because this team pulls back from breaks and turnovers so often. Like turnovers where the ball gets recycled back to the center back, where like all this, where you are already in the offensive third and you pull the ball back to start a new cycle. It feels like the tactical decision on this team is don't overcommit, the emphasis on keeping your shape at all costs. And we would rather not score a goal and keep our shape than create a chance and be out of shape to give up the counter going the other way. And that's a choice, but I think that certainly limits a little bit of what this team is capable of. It certainly produced results to this point, but what it does is it leaves you vulnerable to, number one, a keeper that's playing really, really well, and number two, it leaves you vulnerable to the third team. And in this game, Jesus Christ, did the third team decide they needed a 10th anniversary celebration too in this. Oh
my God. It was a disaster. Like, there's obviously people know, or I bet less than one person listening to this doesn't know the big game-changing, officiating moment.
It wasn't even that. It wasn't even that though. It was like, so we'll get to the red card here in just a second.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
like, this was one of the most poorly officiated matches I think I have ever seen watching FC Cincinnati. This was every bit, to me, as bad as the Guido Gonzalez game that everyone is the infamous one that everybody talks about from the USL era. It didn't feature a PK that was played off a chest, which was one of the most absurd calls I've ever seen still. But the consistently poor calls, the fact that every Charlotte player that went to ground generated a whistle, no matter the situation, yet Charlotte was still way over us in fouls, never received a yellow card for persistent fouling and persistent physical play.
Didn't get him for plenty of stopping promising attack situations. Like that's something that really frustrates me, is how often we've seen teams come in, foul a ton, get the fouls called, end up racking up a bunch of fouls, and yet somehow FC Cincinnati ends up with all the cards.
Yeah.
Like if you let teams persistently infringe early, that changes the game. And we've seen guys on our team get yellow cards like 50 seconds into the game.
Yeah, for dissent.
It's mind-boggling. Like, what is going through their brain? And I saw the first person I saw get warned for persistent infringement was one of our players.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they've got twice as many fouls as we do. How has there not accidentally been some persistent infringement or close to persistent infringement there? And then another thing that this is not unique to this ref, but how indulgent they are with time wasting. Like how many times do you have to blow the whistle at the goalie, talk to the goalie, tell the goalie to play, and he was time wasting
every play. Every play.
Every time.
It was the same trick every time,
it was like,
too.
oh, you're going to tell him again?
Right.
It's okay. I guess tell him again. Now he knows.
Yeah, it's the same trick every time. I can't believe this isn't whistled more, or carded more, where it's everybody up, I'm going to play the ball short, 10 seconds run off the clock. Actually, I've changed my mind. Everybody go long, and we waste another 10 seconds with everybody jogging up to the midfield line for a long ball to be played. You have just killed 30 seconds off the game, and you're doing it every time, no matter what the official is telling you, like, oh, you have to hurry up. It's Kevin brings this up all the time, and I think you've brought it up a bunch too. It's that you don't have to be fooled by this. You don't have to give them the first 2 or 3 if you know what they're doing. You can just pull a card out and say, you know what? I watch soccer too. I know what you're doing. Like we don't have to pretend each time a game happens that it's tabula rasa, it's a blank slate, and I'm not aware that this is a common trick to waste time. I can just recognize this based on previous experiences and interactions I've had and say, hey, you do this, you haven't come up with some brand new strategy. We don't get to reinvent and pretend like this is a new thing I've never seen before each and every time we start a game.
And I want to be clear, like I know Roman uses the same tricks like that every goalie uses. And I don't blame the goalie for doing it. It is the official's job to stop it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the goalie's trying to waste some time because when it's beneficial for his team to waste time. But it's your job as a referee to do something about it. You know, it's not that's not a hard call either. It's not like a thing you miss.
Right.
It's a bad brain mistake. It's not a like, oh, I just missed it. This was a hard call. That's an easy call. You just have a bad brain.
You're just not mentally fit enough to do this. This official, it needs to be said. I think this official is a problem. This person, I think at this point it's Philip Dujic, I think is his name. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's close enough that I don't think he deserves.
He deserves me. I'm not going to learn his exact pronunciation. This is the same official that decided that he needed to be a meme. I think was that last year during the first season.
Like the however ref.
The first season of officials getting on the broadcast where he makes a statement to the home crowd that leads them to believe that a goal is going to be awarded, saying that the player was not offside, I think, or something like that, but then says, however, and then gets this little smirk on his face and says the goal is still being disallowed because there was a foul in the buildup or some similar happy nonsense. There's a rather damning YouTube video, in my opinion, out there of him being interviewed, but the link is out there to an interview he's done where he talks about how his experience dealing with different ethnicities helps him as an official and informs how he officiates. I thought it was pretty gross, but that's not for me to make any aspersions on that. But the video is out there. I'm sick of these people, man. I find it embarrassing that this league continues to be so poorly officiated. Don Garber was in attendance for this match and had to watch this, and had to watch in the second half as Brian Anunga is sent off with a red card for having the audacity to be fouled and have that not be called, and have the official be aware that a foul had happened and not call it. And as the play continues, with Anunga having been pulled back and have his jersey pulled, is now stretching to reach a ball. He steps on a sliding ankle of a Charlotte player that he would have beaten to the ball were it not for this foul, and is awarded a red card for violent play. The pool report comes out later in this, and it is just one of the most bizarre, crazy, match fixy type statements I think I've ever heard. So the submitted question was, after the VAR check and red card issued, FC Cincinnati goalkeeper Roman Celentano restarted the play, indicating that advantage was given to Brian Anunga on the contact before he made the serious foul play offense. Why was advantage given in a seemingly not appropriate situation where he appeared to be trying to earn possession? The response to the submitted question: there was no advantage. There was a moment of waiting and seeing. After he did not gain possession, we went back to the original foul.
I do want to clarify. I think there's been some confusion about the waiting and seeing. Like, that is in the rules, that if there's a foul the official sees, and they do have the option to consider for a moment whether there's an advantage to be given, and that is called waiting and seeing. Okay? And so what the ref is doing here in this answer is playing a little word game, because the reporter, I don't know who wrote this question.
I believe it was Laurel Failer that wrote this question.
I'm not casting aspersions on how Laurel wrote the question, because I do think that this is how most people just talk about this thing. Would talk about it. If the ref had given an advantage, the ref would not have whistled a foul against Charlotte. Like, the ref doesn't whistle the foul if they're giving an advantage. You get to keep the advantage, is how that's done. So when they put in the question, advantage was given, that's technically not correct, because the ref called the foul. He didn't give advantage. He was, quote unquote, waiting and seeing. So rather than explain the thought process of why he did what he did, the ref is playing a little semantic game, that, like, they used the wrong magic word in the question, so I'm going to fix the magic word and use my magic word, and not actually explain anything. You know?
Yeah. Well, here's my.
And so it's
Sorry.
in my issue with it is I guess I have three problems with it. One, I think the foul should have been whistled immediately.
Yes.
Okay. Because once that foul happens, Anunga's not getting to the ball.
No.
Like, there's no, or even if he does get to the ball, he's not going to get to it in a position where he's going to be able to do anything meaningful for it. You know, so there's no advantage that is possibly happening.
No.
So what are you waiting and seeing for? Right. I don't think he was waiting and seeing. I think he reacted slowly to the foul.
Yeah.
I think he just was slow. I don't think he was waiting and seeing. I don't know what he's waiting and seeing for. Second, there has to be some allowance given to the fact that Anunga's only in that position and only doing any of that because he's fouled, right? And he's knocked off of his ordinary track.
Yeah.
Right? And so he's not going in to a guy who's, like, dribbling and making, like, a horror tackle, right? He's recovering from being fouled.
Yes.
And he's stepping where his foot goes, and a guy slides under his foot.
Underneath, like, it while it's
you have
down.
To have some common sense for how this thing comes together before you think, no, I'm going to determine the outcome of the game based on this.
Yeah.
You know, and then my third problem with it is you see people defending it, saying, like, you know, that's always a red, always a red, always a red. Anytime somebody says something is always called a certain way, they're just lying to you. Because nothing is always called.
No.
anyway.
Yeah, and you haven't seen every game in every situation to say that this is always done this way. The
There's a
most you can
degree-
ever say is that I have personally never seen a play like this not called, which congratulations, you having watched maybe 1/1000th of the number of soccer matches played in a given calendar season around the globe, generously. Yes, I will believe that in this one very small sliver of matches that you have watched, perhaps you have never seen this not called. But that does not mean in every instance in the history of the game something has been called this way. That's just, you are just being disingenuous.
Right. And there's like a million permutations for how a thing like this can come together.
Yeah.
And so to take a still frame of it, that also is basically a lie.
Right.
Because you're eliminating all the possible context about what happened. And like
I think your second point is the most one that I'm the most frustrated with, is that you have to acknowledge that once you believe that Brian Anungo was fouled in this play, that it almost to a certain extent, you have to treat it like continuation in the NBA, where whatever his natural next two things that he does are, like, they're a consequence of him being fouled. It doesn't matter if the player misses the layup, they still shoot free throws because you understand that, well, the foul and the contact probably resulted in or contributed to the fact that the shot was missed. In this case, Anunga gets pulled. He gets tampered with. But for that, you can't say for certain that, I'll be the opposite on this. I'll say, yeah, you can probably say for certain that this impacts where his foot ends up because his natural gait is changed. The speed at which he's moving is changed. The speed with which he gets to the spot has changed. And for a play that's this bang, where it wasn't like he went into someone's studs up, it isn't like he moved his foot into a dangerous position or did something inherently dangerous. He stepped. And by the time he stepped, while his foot was coming down, that's when the Charlotte player slides underneath him. And number one, I think in a situation like this, I don't think you reward the player going to ground for putting himself into a dangerous situation like that. I'm sorry. The Charlotte player chose to go to ground in that situation. You're inherently assuming a little bit of the risk of something happening when you go to ground. Stay standing up if it's that important to you. And number two, if you are conceding that Brian Anunga was fouled and it impacted him in enough way to cause the whistle to be blown, then I'm sorry, you have to also give him the grace for the fact that, yeah, it probably impacted where he ended up and how this contact ended up. And I just think it's flummoxing and frustrating that you can be fouled, and in that period where the ref is determining whether or not the play should be stopped entirely, that you can still end up committing an offense that changes the game. It's almost like in that moment of waiting and seeing, it should be brief enough that all crime should kind of be legal in that spot right there. Like, unless you take some sort of overtly intentional act, like you can't punch a dude, but if you're in that split second between determining when advantage is being played and when it's not, I think that if you end up blowing the foul, it should be like those second and a half didn't happen.
And, even I watched the instant replay, even though I knew what Andrew Wiebe was going to say about it. And he even admits on the video that he thinks it was accidental. And then I'm like,
then it's not a red card.
Man,
I'm sorry.
How can you, what kind of a system is it where we're going to throw somebody out of the game and, again, basically statistically decide the outcome of the game based on something that we can't at least attribute to a player's recklessness.
Right.
I'm not saying he has to intentionally try to hurt a guy.
Right.
You can be reckless and deserve a red. But in a play like that, where I think any ordinary observer has to say okay, yeah, anybody can hit the pause button and stop a picture. But if you watch how that play develops, it just kind of ends up that way.
Yeah.
And how are you going to throw a player out based on that? And that it's one of my frustrations with how soccer's called, and you can throw this with, the persistent infringement stuff. You could throw this in with the time wasting of the keeper and stuff, is that so many things feel so arbitrary and inconsistently applied that it's indistinguishable from match fixing. Right? Because it's like, if something is like 50-50, and I call it one way, it determines the out. I'm not saying this was 50-50, but like you see this a lot with like penalties, right? If something is called 50% of the time one way and 50% of the time the other way, and one way it's basically determining the outcome of the match, and the other way it's basically having no impact on the match as played, 50% of the time that was essentially those matches were fixed.
Yeah. The other people I don't want to let off the hook here, because I thought the match
Jeff
official,
Birding.
obviously not Jeff Birding. I thought the match official was horrendous, but the only reason this was a red card was because he was called to the monitor by VAR, and he did not give a red in that situation. He was called to the monitor by VAR, and to me, it's even worse that people had the ability to watch that in replay and sit there dispassionately and be able to see what was going on in the field, to know Brian Anunga was fouled, to know that impacted everything, and they still called him over the monitor to say you should give this player a red card. Like, it would be one thing if he had given him a red in the moment because all he saw was the foot coming down on the ankle. That didn't happen. That was MLS VAR Central doing this, and I
think that's 3 matches in a row for us where somebody's gone to the monitor between Juarez, Chivas, and Charlotte, and the monitor decision went against us every time. Like, the only time the call wasn't changed is when changing the call would have given us a penalty against Juarez.
Well, wait, didn't they went to the monitor in Monterrey too, right? To give the goal to Luca Orishano?
Yeah, to determine that he was onside.
Yeah,
yep.
So we got that.
Which
one.
They didn't go to the monitor. They did the automatic
okay.
the automatic onside check.
Different then. Fair enough.
So there's no judgment. There's no judgment in the
automated
in the center ref and the automated onside. So that is I think an important distinguishing factor.
Yeah. So the red card happens in the 70th minute of this game. FC Cincinnati goes down a man. They go down a man, and we'll talk about this in the preview in the next segment, with a very, very important piece in the midfield in this game. To me, once you lose Brian Anunga in a game like this, I know there was some discourse about the subs Pat Noonan used. I think you are praying and holding on for a 0-0 result when you lose basically your only defensive midfielder on the roster.
My only thought about the subs, and I agree with you, that Noonan's hands were
very tied.
Very tied. My only thing was I was hoping to see Dinke coming in at like the 60th minute, because I was just thinking, I was like, we need an offensive change, and but I have no idea how available Dinke really was.
I'm guessing not a lot.
So if he was like physically not in a position to come in that early, then fair enough. Like, you can't risk a player's health in that situation. But like, I was done with the pairing of Kamara and Dotto.
Yeah, I don't think it works
at that point in the game.
I don't think it works very well. Wilfred Zaha scores in the 85th minute. They then see this match out. It ends 1-0. It was a massive missed opportunity for the FC, considering that earlier in the weekend, Philadelphia had also dropped points. They drew 1-1 with, I believe, Toronto in the debut of Georgi Mihailovic there. So, as we exit the weekend, FC Cincinnati still finds itself in second place in the Eastern Conference. It now finds itself third place, however, in the Supporters' Shield standing because for some sell your soul to Satan reason, San Diego just continues to win. They beat Sporting Kansas City 2-0. So they are tied with the FC on points, each of them having 49 points. San Diego FC also has 15 wins, which, as all ball knowers know, is the first tiebreaker in MLS. But they are absolutely washing us on goal differential, 18 plus to 7 plus. So that's where the FC stands right now. This game was grossly disappointing. It felt like it kind of ruined the good vibes until the Alumni game came back and sort of picked that up for us. It just sort of is what it is. And I don't know there's a lot much more to say about it unless you've got something that you really need to get off your chest.
No, I mean, I think that there have been a lot of missed opportunities this season, and we'll see how things shake out later on. But I do wonder, just to go back to what we discussed, before we got into the refereeing stuff, is like, does the team feel like they've scored as many goals as they should have this year? And if not, what's the diagnosis on why?
Yeah.
On why they have it. So
I'd put out San Diego 50 goals in the season, Philadelphia 44 goals in the season, Orlando with 50, FC Cincinnati 39. We are the lowest goal scoring total of anyone in the top 10 in the Supporters' Shield standings. We're the lowest
goals scored in a Eastern Conference playoff position, except for NYCFC.
Yeah. And our goal differential, when you look at the top 5 in the Supporters' Shield, Philadelphia plus 19, San Diego plus 18, directly below us, Nashville plus 14, Vancouver plus 15, plus 7. It stands out amongst the contenders right now.
The West, though, is, if you look at the goals scored, so they have San Diego on 50, but then it's 43, 43, 43, LAFC with 41.
Portland 33,
and then
Austin
Portland 33,
23.
Austin 23, Colorado 33, and then, of course, San Jose 49.
Yeah. The West is just...
That's why we love San Jose. But the West is pretty dire.
The West is dog shit. All right, we're going to close the book and we're going to move on because we've got Western Conference soccer to talk about. So stick around for part 2. We're going to take a look at FC Cincinnati's trek out west to Portland. So be right back. And we're back. Grayson, the FC is heading out west. This was going to be our away days until you decided you like spending time with your family more than you like spending time with your podcast mates. So we got Salt Lake City instead. Don't regret any part of that trip. I thought that was a blast. But the FC is heading out to play the Portland Timbers. I'll say it.
We would have had such bad vibes going into this game.
We would have had terrible
If this was
vibes.
our away days
My God.
the Charlotte game. I'm really glad it was Salt Lake, because Salt Lake could not have gone better.
No, the vibes were
I can't wait
immaculate.
for people to see it.
The vibes were absolutely immaculate. Yeah, this would have been something. So we are the FC are heading out to Portland. This is the Saturday night game. This is a later game this weekend. I think this doesn't kick off until 10:30, 9:30.
10:30 Eastern.
10:30 Eastern time. So caffeinate up. It's going to be a long night on Saturday. So we are out to Portland. Like we just said, Portland Timbers, they are 6th in the Western Conference in playoff position. However, owing to what we just talked about, the West being rather dire, Portland sitting on a -1 goal differential on 33-4, 34 against, only 10 wins against 8 losses and 7 ties. You would normally, under most circumstances, I think, feel pretty good about the FC having to go out west for a matchup like this. However, they will be without the services of one Brian Anunga owing to his red card suspension. so he will not be available. Based on the way that the training reports are looking, it does not look good for Luca Orishano being a part of the traveling contingent for FC Cincinnati. We should point out he picked up a knock in the game against Charlotte. He came out, I want to say, in around maybe at halftime. I think he made it. He was injured just right before half, and then he was subbed off at the half. It looked like it was a groin, hamstring, leg injury. He was moving kind of gingerly afterwards. He's been working inside, I believe, has been the official word from the team in training this week. So I don't know that we're going to see Luca. Kevin Denke made an appearance in this game previously, like we talked about, but only played about 5 minutes. He looks like he's a full participant in training this week, however, so hopefully that's a good sign for what his availability is. However, I will point out, frustrating, the Portland Timbers still play on artificial turf. I don't know what that will do to anyone's availability or how much they choose to play anyone who is working back into fitness. Yuya Kubo remains the biggest medical mystery this side of, you release the cognitive testing from the White House press corps. I don't know what to make of
in any presidential term.
Any presidential term. Yeah, no.
Any.
This
is nonpartisan.
So, Grayson, I posed this to you. What's the lineup going to look like for this game?
Yeah, so I don't think we see a Denke start. I mean, I'm going off the assumption that he was deemed like really only a few minutes healthy last game, so that tells me that he's not start healthy, unless it's that like we're going to start you but take you out after 45, but I just don't see that happening here. Maybe, I don't know. I think that what I want to see, especially assuming Luca Orishano is out, is I want to see Ender Echenike starting at right wing back.
Yeah.
I want to see Miles, Miazga, and Hadebe or Flores or Hagland, like 3 true center backs. And I want to see Lucas Engel at left wing back. Because I don't know. I've liked what I've seen out of Ender, especially, probably exclusively talking about his speed. And that's clearly a very dangerous tool. And without Luca on the field, I don't know where else we're getting that.
Yeah.
And then if we're starting him at right wing back, I do want as stronger defenders as we have in the rest of the defense, and I don't want to start him as an inverted wingback. So that's how I'm getting to the other 4 positions on the back line. Midfield is a big question mark.
Midfield is a problem.
But I don't have a great answer to it, but obviously Buka. Obviously, Evander.
Evander may be the most must-start player in human history in this game, just from the motivation factor against Portland alone.
And then, I know they've put out Jimenez a couple games in the midfield. For me, not startable.
No, I agree.
And so you're down to like, I think you have to play Dotto
in the defense at the 8.
Yeah. And I'm not happy about it.
No.
And which means up top you have Kamara and Sergio Santos.
If he's available.
If he's available. He was available last game, right?
He was not.
Oh.
They had him as listed as injured in the last game.
Well, then I guess it's Stefan Trilla. I have to go back and look at the
team
lineup,
at the team
sheet last time.
Look at the roster for who's available on this freaking team right now. So you're not moved by the positive things. I think Pat Noonan said that Steven Jimenez had a good showing at the Leagues Cup. I frankly don't remember him playing.
He started against Chivas.
Oh, well, yeah, but like that was all like that was FC Cincinnati too.
He also came in against Juarez.
All right.
So let's see who we got. Oh boy,
it's not great, brother.
No, it is not great.
DeAndre Edlin know how to play defensive mid?
Does Kenji Mboma-Dem play defensive mid? Because then I guess you could play him defensive mid and Valenzuela up top. I mean, if Pat feels like he can start Steven, then Dotto and Kai start up top again. But I think it's Dotto. I think it's Kai up top, and then I don't know Kenji.
I think it's
whoever.
I think it's gonna be Steven. I think it's gonna be Jimenez. I mean, I think that they've put all of the information out there in terms of what Pat has said in the media. Like if I was trying to gas up a guy who hasn't exactly looked great, that you're gonna need for 90 minutes in a game on the West Coast in Portland. I mean, you would start to say things like this publicly in the media to try and make him feel a little better about himself when he's got, because Steven Jimenez has a Google alert set for when Steven Jimenez gets talked about, right? Like there's no doubt in my mind that he knows when somebody's posting stuff about him.
So, nothing would make me happier than Steven getting the start and doing a job.
Right.
Like I would be absolutely thrilled because I'm wishing nothing but for the best career possible for that young man.
Right.
I don't see him in training every day. I've seen him in games a little bit recently. I don't think you can start him in an MLS game in center midfield unless you have literally no other choice.
I think they have no other choice. But
yeah, I mean, I'm coming around to it.
Yeah. He has nervous energy. Like when you see him on the field, like when Dotto walks on the field like he's a movie villain in like a teenage after school special. Like he looks like he's there to steal your lunch money and to close the teen center in Aspen. Like he's got that kind of vibe to him. When Jimenez comes out on the field, it does feel like, it does feel a little skittish. Like, the first mammals that emerged after the dinosaurs went extinct and poked their head up above land to see if everything was okay. It's got that kind of energy, which I guess maybe makes me feel a little more unsettled. The other thing to know about Steven Jimenez, if you go to the FC Cincinnati team roster and click on Steven Jimenez, you can find out all sorts of fun facts about Steven. Like the fact that his name is Steven Jimenez, that he's 5'8", that he's 150 pounds. His date of birth is 6/24/2007, making him 18 years old. And his birthplace is listed as unknown USA, which makes me ask, is Steven Jimenez actually a professional wrestler hailing from parts unknown?
That's a good question. I mean, surely somebody knows. But
it literally says unknown USA.
Yeah, let's not flag this because I don't know. I don't want Steven like disappearing between now and Saturday.
Unknown USA. We're good. Don't worry about it.
Or is it unknown
USA? Possibly you. Grayson, we're going to need a prediction on this. What do you got?
I think this game absolutely reeks of 1-1.
Yeah. Portland doesn't score a lot.
Right.
But this lineup that we're going to trot out there ain't going to score a lot either, I don't think.
It ain't going to defend that much.
Yeah. Because it has 0-0 energy until you remember that they're not starting a defensive mid, which feels problematic. It is MLS After Dark. 4-4. Just out of nowhere. It makes no sense, but it feels right to me. Speaking of pro wrestling, Kevin is currently at pro wrestling right now. He's at AEW Dynamite. I guess, check your DVR and your local listings to see if you see him in the background. Hopefully he's holding up some sort of a sign directing people to listen to the postcast for all these scintillating takes we're offering. Grayson, do you have anything else to add to the people before we sign off?
Fuck Columbus.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast, which is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com for all of our written content as well as links to our social media. You can follow us on Twitter, and as well you can join us on our Discord server. You can find links to that server both in this episode description as well as on our website. That is where most of our conversations are going on. We have a lovely community there talking about FC Cincinnati, MLS, anything and everything else and everything in between. We also want to give a huge thanks to Jim Trace and the Makers for providing all of the music you've heard throughout this episode. They're an amazing local Cincinnati band. Again, more information about them is in the description of this episode. And if you enjoyed what you listened to and you've made it to the end, so I'm going to assume you liked it, or you just can't reach your stop button, please like us, review us, subscribe to us wherever you are getting your podcasts. That is going to be really, really helpful. But more importantly, share this with a friend. A personal recommendation helps spread a podcast so much further. So please share this if you know somebody in your life who's an FC Cincinnati fan, an MLS fan, somebody that you think would enjoy this. Pass it on over. Thank you so much again for listening. It blows me away that people continue to listen to us, and thank you so much again.